First, let me say, before I start speaking about the purpose, I want to thank Senator Warner for his leadership, the senator from Virginia, who has many federal employees, many defense contractors in Virginia, and as the senator from Virginia recognizes the great threat to our nation today in cyber security, and the fact, Senator knows very well that there are literally thousands of attacks taking place as we speak. That is why, as we get ready to go back to our states for the August recess and visit with constituents, we are pressing very hard for a positive vote to move forward on the debate to fashion a cybersecurity bill for our nation. So I thank the senator for his leadership and, of course, the tremendous federal employees that do get beat up all the time, but in fact do remarkable work for our nation and for the world. So I thank the senator from Virginia. I wanted to come to the floor, Mr. President, to speak about a bill that I have the pleasure of helping to lead with several of my colleagues, particularly Senator Grassley, who has been my longstanding partner and wonderful co-chair of the Foster Care Caucus. There are any number of us, Republicans and Democrats, who have our eyes on and our hearts connected to the over 500,000 children that are technically being raised by the government. Now, the government does many things well. Raising children isn't one of them. And so it's our responsibility when we enter into or respond to a case of abuse, gross abuse, or neglect, gross neglect, that we respond appropriately by removing children from homes, unfortunately, being tortured at times by their own parents, which is inconceivable to me and to many, but unfortunately happens. Remove children, hopefully that is temporary until the situation at home can be addressed with community services, faith-based services and support, where the children can be reunited to parents who have been healed possibly of their situation. That is not always the case, and we work as quickly as we can to find responsible and able relatives to take in the child, willing and able relatives, the law says, to take in the child with sibling groups intact. And if that's not possible, Mr. President, then we seek to find a family in the community that will adopt these children. And the wonderful thing that I want to say, or the thing I want to say about these wonderful children is, while their families, Mr. President, may be broken, families may disintegrate for all sorts of reasons: mental health, drug abuse, uncontrollable violence, criminal activity that disintegrates a family, and children are most certainly affected. But these children, in many instances, aren't broken. Their families are broken. And if these children at ages of 0 to 1 or 2 or 3 or 9 or 12 or 15 could be given an opportunity to be adopted into the loving arms of a stable family that will raise that child or children as their own, or to be reunified with loving family members, is ideal. As I said, governments do many things well. Raising children isn't one of them. Human beings raise other human beings, and we need to do a better job of placing our children in quality, temporary foster homes and then finding permanent loving homes. We have this crazy notion in America and around the world that children are grown when they're 18, and so we put all their belongings in a plastic bag and we say goodbye to them, and please forget my cell phone number because you've aged out of the system. Several of us have been working for years, Senator Chafee for one, former senator, to create more permanent opportunities for extended independent living. And while I support that, and it's much better than putting their things in a bag, you know, their few little items after 18 years and sending them on their way, we now can extend that help to their 21. But what we really need to be doing is finding families for these children. I'm 57 and I still need my family. I still talk to my mother and father almost every day. I was with my family this weekend. They will be with me and have been with me for every important moment of my life. When did somebody get a notion that children don't need a family after they're 18. It's a silly notion, and it's not even true. We would not send our own children out into the world alone by themselves. So our whole foster system needs great reform, and we're working on that. But one piece of this system that needs reform is what we're trying to address today by introducing the Uninterrupted Scholars Act, which is a bill that Senator Grassley and many of us, Senator Begich, Senator Blunt, Senator Boxer, Senator Franken, and Senator Klobuchar, have graciously agreed to co-sponsor and provide their leadership. Congresswoman Bass is a U.S. representative from California's 33rd District. She, along with Michelle Bachmann from Minnesota, Congresswoman Marino from Pennsylvania, and McDermott from Washington, D.C., have introduced the same bipartisan bill in the House, so we're very excited about the strong bipartisan support for this bill. All this bill says, and it makes such sense, I can't believe it's not in the law already, is that when a child comes into care of the government, that the government agency responsible for the care of this child, now it's not parents any longer because the parents' rights are either have been terminated or in the process of being terminated, the government will have the right, or the agencies representing the government, to their academic records. What's happening now is foster children are getting lost, not only in the system, but lost in their schools because of the difficulty in getting access to education records, under the guise that these records should be, private, etc. What's happening is some of these privacy rules are not protecting the children, they're protecting the system that's broken. And that is the problem. We are doing everything we can to protect the privacy of the child, but what's happening is some of these privacy rules are putting up a screen so that you really can't find out that the school is not doing its job on behalf of the child, or the social workers are not doing their job on behalf of the child. So this simply streamlines the process of making sure that academic records can be accessed by foster families, either adoptive families or guardians, without having to go through the courts for a long, extended time frame. I think this is an important change. It's one of probably 100 changes to this system that need to be made. And of course, we can make these new laws in Washington. A lot of this has to be carried out with heart and compassion and common sense, which unfortunately we cannot legislate from Washington. But what we can do is to try, when we see a problem. This problem was identified not by me or by my staff. It was actually identified by foster youth who came up here this summer to intern and brought to our attention the issue that some of their records are not accessible to their foster families who are trying their best to raise them and to help them, et cetera, et cetera. So the young people themselves have asked for this change. We're happy to accommodate that request. And let me just end by saying again, there are over 480, about 400 to 500,000 children that are in our foster care system, representing less than 0.5% of all the children in America, which is about 100 million. But it's an important 0.5%, because these are children whose families have failed them terribly. These are children that are vulnerable and need us to love them extra special, to help them extra special. And that's what some of us spend a good bit of our time trying to do, because they are willing and able to become great citizens of our nation, but need that extra special help. So this Uninterrupted Scholars Act will give access appropriately with protections to their academic records. Senator Franken has a bill to give them choice in public schools, to help them give stability in their public schools so they can stay with their friends, their teachers, as they unfortunately have to move around in the system. Many people will benefit, most importantly, the youth involved. Mr. President, thank you. I've introduced the bill earlier today. We have 6 co-sponsors, and I want to thank Senator Colburn for letting me speak in advance of his time on the floor, and I yield the floor.